Good morning, everybody. Joe Chacho here. Happy Friday. Happy start for a new weekend coming up. Today I want to talk about a little bit more about underwriting. Have had a lot of questions on, Joe, who do I put a client with? And Joe, the person is this. So this is kind of what I want to kind of sit and think about the process that every agent has to go through when you're in a lead business. And when you have to go through this process, you got to go through it with a system and to do it correctly. Because if you don't, you're going to end up putting your foot in your mouth and quoting a price that you shouldn't quote. So let's kind of start from the beginning. A lot of you already know this here, but there's a process. You got to buy the leads. You got to wait for them to come in. Then when you get them, either you're going to call them or you're going to door knock them. Depends on what your style is. A lot more agents today are doing more door knocking because people aren't answering the phone. Lead costs have gone up. They don't want to burn it by calling someone on the phone. They'd rather come up to the door and have a big old smile and show them the lead that they sent in. When you finally get in the house, you got to do the warm up, the hello, how you do. You got to break the ice. You kind of give them somewhat of an idea of what you're there for. As you're doing that, you're probably doing a little bit of investigating about their health, if they got a checking account, if they got any type of coverage. Then you got to transition into asking the questions on the application. Here's the deal. When you ask the questions on the application, you're going to get either a yes or a no. Okay? Now, I'm going to go a little bit more detail on this in a second. If a person had a heart attack 11 months ago, that does not mean 1 year or more. That means less than a year. So the answer on the question is yes, and it's a do not submit. Depends on the carrier. The insurance companies say, ask the questions the exact way that they're written on the application. Give us an answer. We'll accept that. Yet, the next step is you got to look at their prescription medication. Now, that's not the whole thing. Now you've got to sit and say, well, I want to put them with this carrier. Does this carrier have a height weight chart? The carrier's got a height weight chart, and that's the carrier you want to put them with. You got to do the uncomfortable question and say, ma'am, how tall are you? How much you weigh? If you're in a situation where you feel uncomfortable asking for your height and weight, you can go to Royal Neighbors or Transamerica, or if they don't qualify for a media, you can go to a guaranteed issue and there's no height weight questions. Do not sit and say, well, they're 5'10" and they weigh 260 and write that on the application, because what has happened, agents have called me, all upset with the carrier. Joe, the height weight chart went to 257. Why can't they give it to me at 260? It's only 3 pounds. Well, the carrier says, you know something, Mr. Agent? We have a list here. We have a chart of what we'll accept and what we won't accept. Mr. Agent, Mrs. Agent, do your job and look it up. So that's what I'm telling you. Do your job, look it up. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. You've got numerous carriers that you can put your clients with. When you start talking to a client about their health questions and their RX, take a step back and think about what you're going to do. When a client answers questions, have you had a heart attack? And they go, well, no, I haven't had a heart attack. What that's telling you is that something has gone on with them, and you need to be a little bit nosy now and say, well, did you have something like a heart attack? Were you in the hospital? You got to be a little bit proactive, because what's going to happen is that if you rush through the process, you're going to get them set up, put them with a carrier, get them the wrong price because they're going to be declined, come back with a higher price and they're not going to want to buy from you. So you need to make sure that their height and weight is in check. The questions are answered no. There's no medication that is there that will be able to hurt them. Here's one example. And I would love to get a carrier on the phone to explain the difference between a maintenance drug and a treatment drug. You have a heart attack 3 years ago and you're on a maintenance drug, you're fine. You have hepatitis and you're on a drug, they call that treatment. So that's not considered okay. So every carrier's got different rules, different regulations, and it's actually very challenging to keep track of every carrier's maintenance, treatment and all that stuff there. So it's kind of like a go as you go and learn as you learn. Now, let's talk about a couple things. I'm going to do a little bouncing around as I've been doing lately. When you call me and you tell me, Joe, I've got this lovely lady sitting right here. Her height, weight is in check. And she's on high blood pressure. She's on cholesterol. And she uses oxygen as needed. There's no need to call me because she's been prescribed oxygen. She's using oxygen. It doesn't matter whether she uses it at nighttime to sleep or she uses it once in a while when she goes to the mall. It is guaranteed issue. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through a list now of things that are guaranteed issue. It doesn't matter if they do it a little bit or they do it a lot, as long as they have been either diagnosed or prescribed, let's say a wheelchair, and they're confined, is called automatic guaranteed issue. If a client has nothing wrong with him, Joe, this lady looks fantastic, Joe. She answered all the questions just right. There's nothing wrong with her, but when you hear the word but, you know there's always something like a negative coming. She takes a medication called Aricept, but she does not have Alzheimer's. She is perfect. Joe, I'm talking to her. She's answering all the questions just right. What can I give her? Guaranteed issue. Now, if a client feels that they have been, if the MIB is wrong or the RX is wrong, you can give them the number for MIB and RX, which you can find in the back office, and you can have them go through the process of trying to get that taken off their record. If you want to be so kind to do it, it's going to be a challenging uphill battle for you, yet those things happen to people, and they've got to deal with it. You can help them if you want, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Now, guaranteed issue. Somebody's on oxygen. It does not matter whether they use it part-time, only time. The only time that they can use oxygen is when it is in connection with their CPAP machine, and they use it only at nighttime. So a CPAP machine with air, all carriers take it. CPAP machine with oxygen, Forrester says we'll take that one there, okay? Forresters will take the CPAP with oxygen. Yet if the oxygen is used any other time besides the CPAP, forget about it, okay? Oxygen's a no-no. HIV, AIDS. Kidney dialysis is another guaranteed issue. Confined to a wheelchair, somebody who cannot get up. They can pick themselves up to get in bed, pick themselves up to sit on the couch, maneuver themselves, but if they cannot stand up and walk around a little bit, that's called confined, guaranteed issue. Somebody's paralyzed, okay? Paralyzed. If somebody is bedridden, they're in the bed, they can't get up, guaranteed issue. Nursing home. Somebody's been diagnosed a nitro pill less than a year ago, guaranteed issue. Transamerica says, Joe, we're going to take nitro pill as a maintenance drug. We accept it as a maintenance drug, Transamerica says. If it's been between 1 year and 2 years they've been prescribed, we'll give your client the immediate standard. If your client has been using it, has been using it over 2 years and prescribed it over 2 years, we'll give them a preferred immediate. So Transamerica's definition of a nitro pill is maintenance. Every other company that I can think of is considered a treatment, and it's a forget about it. Organ transplants, congestive heart failure. They're in a long-term care facility. If they're mentally challenged, all guaranteed issue. Alzheimer's, dementia, some type of memory loss, those are all considered guaranteed issue. So it doesn't matter if they use oxygen a little bit. It doesn't mean that the kidney dialysis are doing a whole lot better, Joe. Things are going great. Joe, they had a kidney transplant. Joe, it don't matter. Carriers say guaranteed issue. I don't have any carriers, top of my head, that will give you any type of coverage other than guaranteed for any type of organ transplant. If a client is on some type of medication that is used for Alzheimer's, dementia, or memory loss, even though they have 100% of their faculties and you're speaking with them and they're speaking as fluent as I'm speaking now, the insurance company says, we've got to follow protocol. They may be acting very good that day, Joe. They may have been misdiagnosed, yet we've got to have parameters on what we accept and what we don't accept. So those are the things. Go through that list, write it down. So when you call me and you say, Joe, they're in great health, they get along great, they exercise on a weekly basis, but let's sit and say, but they got a little bit of Alzheimer's, they got a tinge of Alzheimer's. They take just a little small pill of a memory loss pill. Insurance carrier says, you know something, we would like to accept them if you've got one of us before they were diagnosed, yet now we're not going to offer it to them. Now, when it comes to cancer questions will state, have you had cancer treatment or gone to a doctor within a period of time? The way the cancer question is really saying is, Mr. Agent, ask your client, when was the last time they received treatment for cancer? Treatment could be chemo, it can be radiation, it can be the removal of something, breast removal, prostate removal. They want to know the last time. They kind of want to know when the client was cleared. Doctor says you are cancer free, the treatment is over with, you're doing fine, we want to keep you in check. Okay, so when you look at Royal Neighbors, United Home Life, you look at the Miracle Eagle, they only look back 2 years on that question. Here's an example. You had a client that had cancer 25 months ago, 2 years and 1 month ago, okay? And they went through radiation and chemo, and that was 19 months ago, their guaranteed issue. Royal Neighbors, United Home Life, American Eagle, off the top of my head, 2 years. Foresters, 3 years. Transamerica is 4 years. So if Transamerica is your favorite company to write, and they had cancer 3 years ago, they can have Transamerica, but they're going to get a graded product. So you ought to look at your little cheat sheet that we have in the back office in Dropbox. It has everything listed for you guys on what carrier that you can put your client with based on their illnesses and how they are. When you're going down the questions on the application, as we said a second ago, it's either a yes or a no. That is half of where you got to go. Now you need to ask them medication questions, okay? If they answer something having to do with a prescription, okay? Let's say they had a stroke 4 years ago, and for whatever reason, the doctor says, you know something, we need to put you back on a blood thinner because your blood's a little thick. We did some tests. You got some high level. We need to put you on a blood thinner. Most carriers will sit and say, Joe, I'm sorry. Your client may have had that stroke 4 years ago. Yet, if he's on a blood thinner, there's something going on. He cannot have a regular program. Now, Royal Neighbors says, Joe, your clients had a stroke 4 years ago. They had something wrong with them, and they decided to go on a blood thinner today. Royal Neighbors says, no problem, we'll take that client. Yet the other carriers look at it as the 1 year period and the 2 year period. Now, probably one of the most easiest companies we have to write, companies that has the least look back, the least toughness, okay? Now, granted, every carrier's got his good days and his bad days. Agents call me and say, Joe, I put the client with that carrier there. Everything went perfect. I wrote this client who had the exact same thing wrong with them, and they were declined. Well, I don't think it's the carrier declining your business because they're in business to help you make sales. What happens is that the first person may have slipped through the cracks for whatever reason, and the second person may have been caught because they didn't tell the whole truth. So you got to do a lot of investigating when it comes to underwriting, because just because they say no, you got to look at some facial expressions. You got to sit and visit with them. You got to go down the thought process. I like to ask about health questions regarding their health insurance. I don't know why, but people are more in tune to tell you more about their health when you're talking about health insurance. They're more in tune to tell you about all the medications they take. They actually want to brag to you and tell you, Joe, I take 12 medications when it comes to health insurance, and they're all generics and I pay nothing. Or Joe, I've got a Medi plan and I pay just $1.50, $1.75, whatever the costs are, and that's all I pay for my meds. So they're going to be more encouraged to talk to you about health regards health insurance. Yet when it comes to life insurance, they tend to sometimes have what we call is amnesia. So find a way that's comfortable for you to extract the information from them, kind of learn how to read between the lines. Now, agent called me yesterday and said, Joe, I've got this client here. Everything is perfectly fine. Asked them how their health is. They told me they're on a blood pressure. They're on a cholesterol medication. And I submitted to the carrier. They did a point of sale application. Declined. They said, what's going on, Joe? How can the carrier do that to me? I write a lot of business with them. They're only on that medication. Here's a suggestion I'm going to offer to you guys. When we're talking about medications, people will stop taking medication because they either don't want to take it, okay, or they do not feel they need it anymore. They cannot afford it. Thank you, sir. It is what you call, I don't want to do it no more. I don't want to take it because I feel better. When the insurance company looks at their prescription history and they see a medication on there, even though the client does not want to take it, the client does not need to take it, the doctor says, you know, Mr. Client, you don't need to take that medication no more. We feel you're doing better. It's still on their RX list. Here's my thought. Mr. Client, I want to gather some information from you to make sure I'm giving you the best program available. Can you please share with me all the medication? In fact, if you don't mind, if you can get me your medication so I can look at it with you. The medication that you've been taking, even if you have stopped taking it, or the doctor told you you don't need it anymore because you've gotten better, tell me in the last 3 years. Most of the time, you only need it for 2 years. Let's kind of give them a little help, the benefit of the doubt, to where you don't sit and rush the situation, quote them a price, get them a decline, or get them something other than applied for, because now you got to come back with a higher price, and you've already gone through the entire, I bought the lead, the transition, the warm-up, I've given the price. Now you got to go overcome a higher price, which is going to make it more challenging to make a sale. So if you slow the process down, you do not rush, you tap and you pump those brakes when you're in a house to gather all of the information as you can. What it's going to end up doing is that it's going to end up helping you make more sales, because you're not going to pull the rabbit out of the hat and tell them something inexpensive, then have to come back and give them the old scary face, you got to pay more. Now, let's look at, as I said, the Eagle. Eagle automatically comes with an accidental death rider built into it. So if they get a policy for 10, that's for natural, it's 20 for accidental, and it's even 30 if something happens to them on a common carrier. They only have a 1-year look back on the heart. They don't want defibrillators. They don't want defibrillators. But they had a pacemaker put in, they had a stent, they had a heart attack, they had a stroke, they had something going on with their heart 12 months and 1 day ago, you're banned to get them immediate benefits with no problem. You can do the same thing with Transamerica, yet with Trans, you can only answer one yes in that section C4. If you answer yes to a heart attack 1.5 years ago and insulin, that's going to throw them into a graded. If you answer yes to COPD and insulin, that's going to throw you into a graded with Transamerica. So look at the chart, call me or call your manager, okay? If you got a client of yours who talks too much, I've run across this so many times, the client just talks and talks and talks. Have you had a heart attack in 2 years? No, but I had one 3 years ago. Have you had any problems with this? No, I haven't had it. But let me tell you about something that happened to me about 10 years ago. You don't want to get that person on a point of sale call because they're going to mess the call up because they can't stop talking. Even though they answered all the questions no, even though, how much do you weigh? I've been in that situation before. I just feel a little uncomfortable sometimes, okay? Why? I don't know. Just one of those days that you have. If you feel a little uncomfortable or you feel they may not fit a height weight chart, what you can do is kind of guess in your mind. And if you guess wrong, it's going to backfire. So if you feel uncomfortable, put them either with Royal Neighbors or Transamerica on the simplified issue whole life. That's it. Simplified issue whole life, Transamerica, Royal Neighbors says, you know something? We got no height weight chart. You got somebody that's not quite tall enough for their weight. Don't worry about it. We're priced for it. Now, if you sit and say, well, I'm going to take the easy road because I want to put them with my favorite carrier, and you put them down and they're too much weight for the chart, you're going to get a decline. There's no, Joe, can you call and help me? Joe, what can you do? Some carriers will give you 1 pound sum, okay? Just depends on the underwriter. Now, what I just said is simplified issue whole life. When you sit and say you want to take the next step and you want to start doing term, IULs, ULs, the big boys when it comes to the whole life, like the Royal Neighbors Jet Term and Jet Whole Life, when you get into that category, it's more stringent. They got harder height weight charts. You got to weigh a little bit less. They go back 5 years on heart. They have a different underwriting process. So when you go to a client's house and they say, Joe, I want to buy $50,000 of life insurance. And you're saying, so you start asking the health questions and you pull out a regular whole life, not the simplified issue, the regular whole life programs from the carrier of your choice, and they cannot answer that question the way it's supposed to be answered, don't sit and make a phone call. Don't even waste your time. Take a step back and say, you know something? I've got something for you. What I think is best for you is I've been doing this for a long time. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of split this up for you. I'm going to give you 2 different carriers. I'm going to give you $30,000 with carrier A. I'm going to give you $20,000 with carrier B to get you exactly what you need. And God forbid, down the road, something happens. Money gets tight, so you don't cancel the whole $50,000, okay? You can maybe cancel the one for $20,000 and you still got coverage. So you're going to break it up for them. I'm not a proponent of doing a 25 and a 25 because the 25 is $100 and the other 25 is $107. They're going to wonder, why is this one $7 more? It's the same face amount. Just another dilemma you got to cross. So if you want, do 35,000, 15,000, whatever your choice is, make it to where it is smooth sailing for you. Any carrier that does term, ULs or IULs, I want to reemphasize this. Their underwriting is tougher and their prescriptions are tougher. All the carriers we have underwriters you can call up. You may call me. I'm about 75% great on the term and the IULs. When it comes to me being 100%, I'm not. You got to sometimes call the carrier and say, Miss Underwriter, I've got a gentleman here. And when you do call an underwriter and you're going to do a risk assessment, you've got to give them all the information that you know. Because what's going to happen is if you say, well, I'm not going to say this, I'm going to kind of like let this go. I'm going to kind of squeeze this in. Possibility that the underwriter is going to sit and say, yep, Joe, submit your client on a preferred term, yet you get a standard term rate returned to you because you didn't say everything. The underwriter can only underwrite the risk based on what you tell them. I tell clients a lot of times when they want to get a big whole life or a big term from me, I'm going to say, Ms. Jones, what I want to do, I want you to kind of visualize you and myself right now are sitting in your doctor's office. And you're going to say, Doc, this is my insurance man, Joe. I want to buy some life insurance. I want you to tell Joe everything about me. I even want you to give Joe all my medical records to where he can look at them, to where he can make sure he gets me the best program. Okay? Now, if you do a fully medically underwritten term product, they're going to get your medical records. They're going to check the client's blood, height, weight, blood pressure. They're going to check all that stuff there. So the more you make that client relax, slow yourself down, have them give you everything about them, what it's going to do is going to allow you to place that client with the carrier where you're going to get a good program for the client. Yesterday's call, I talked about United Home Life has a term product where they accept an insulin diabetic, 20-year term. Okay, they only go up to 50,000. Yet there's something out there for your client who has insulin problems. Most of the carriers don't want it if it's a non-med, but it's a fully medically underwritten. They're going to want to know all the different things about diabetic. You probably have to fill out a diabetic questionnaire sheet. You're probably going to get a table 2, maybe a table 4, just depends. So look at United Home Life for insulin diabetics. Okay, let me wrap this up. If you want a guaranteed issue, we got them. We got a guaranteed issue from 18 all the way to 85. You want to know what they are? Give Heather or Jay a call. I won't keep them the phone much longer. When a client says, well, I use my oxygen just once in a while, that's guaranteed issue. If the client says there's nothing wrong with me, yet the doctor gave me this Aricept medication or any type of memory loss medication, but there's nothing wrong with me, I'm fine, I don't take it no more, it's still going to show up on their RX. Ask them in the last 3 years, what have you taken? What do you still take? What do you not take? What did the doctor take you off of? So they can give you the ammunition you need to put them with the correct carrier. Eagle only goes back 1 year on heart. If you got a talker, my suggestion, don't put them with a point of sale carrier. If you got a client that's not quite tall enough for their weight when it comes to simplified issue, go Royal Neighbors or Trans, or in the back office, Jay has every carrier we have with every height weight chart. You can go and look at it to make sure that your client falls within those parameters. So with that said, guys, I'll let you go. Make it a great weekend. Monday, I've got Chris Veal from Sagicor on the call talking about their Sagicor IUL. They got a term product that I'll love for you guys to be on there and listen to it. It's a great program. Underwriting is a little bit tougher than simplified issue, as I said, yet they're offering a 15-point commission bonus on top of what you already get till the end of June. So with that said, make it a great weekend. If you have any questions, call me. Appreciate your hard work. If you need any carriers that you may thought of now, give Jay a call. We'll set you up. Make it a great day. Bye-bye. It takes a couple seconds for it to go before you see it, right?